Oh, hi. You just snuck up on me. But that's all right. You're always welcome to our lab, right? That's right. The lab belongs to you and me. We're all sharing here. I was just reading about my girl, Harriet Tubman. You know how much I love Harriet. It's such being such an example to me, of what greatness looks like, right? So in spite of all the challenges that she must have had, she just kept it moving, and sometimes even as I try to be my very best, I find that sometimes, you get up and remember we talked about the lethargic side and the disciplined side, and some mornings I wake up and that lethargic side is like kicking hard, right? And then I have to think about someone that's done great things to help me, of course, God gives me strength and all of that, but then it's nice to have a person, a human being that you could say, look, what made her get up every day like that? Did she sleep at all? Like she didn't do it for recognition, She just, that was her purpose, that was her calling. She kept on answering the call, going back to save more and more people that were enslaved. So, I was reading about it, and the topic I was reading about is the short childhood of a slave, you know? And, like now our kids are kids until they're like 18 years old. We're treating them like children. But during slavery, uh, childhood was almost um, absent. Yeah, because, it says here that Harriet Tubman, like most children born into slavery, started work early. She was 5 years old when her master hired her out as a housemaid. 5 5 years old. I can't even. 5 years old. So as a housemaid, her job was to move in with a family and she had to take care of their children. So she's holding babies and she's 5 years old. Now we're thinking our 5 year olds are too delicate to hold a pencil for too long. It hurts their fingers. You know, you know how I am with jumping ship. So I am going to talk about, when we talk about the promised land that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. saw in his dream, in his vision. Are we there? Like, are we living in the promised land that he saw and prophesied? I mean, I don't think so. I think we're still on our way there, but what happened? We dropped the baton. We passed the baton. The baton has been dropped. I hope it's not at the bottom of some large body of water, but definitely not in our hands. I mean, do you know any more Harriet Tubmans? Do you know any more the others that did great things? I don't want to start calling one name or the other, but the reason why I stopped there, because she's one of the only ones that I know that had the physical, again, just running barefooted, through the murky waters and just amid the dark of the night, and just the risk that she took. Because see, if she was ever caught, she could have been tortured. But knowing that did not stop her. She kept going. All right, I'll go through my list of all the others that have done great things. But you know how I am when I see myself drifting into getting off focus and topic. I tend to stop myself when you're supposed to stop me. So 5 years old, that's when we have to start. So we had to pick up that baton and start running again. So the topic today that I was going to talk about on my board, which you can't see behind me, is reconstructive surgery. Reconstructive surgery. Okay. So I feel like that's what our children need. it's equivalent to a reconstructive surgery. Okay, so not a actual medical surgery, but synonymous to that in the education field. We got to get them started earlier. We have to close their learning gaps. And in order to do that, because they already have these gaps, we're going to have to remove these gaps. We're going to have to go back in. Okay? Make the incision, make the cut. And we're going to have to operate to get our kids back on track. Why did I mention the great warriors of our time, Dr. Martin Luther King? And you might be thinking, I don't know more names. I do, but I am going to stay focused. Okay, I know about the one. Oh, goodness, Lord. I feel like I have to say Ruby Bridges too. I have to. I just have to. All right, but that's the last one I'm going to mention now. But oh my goodness, think about how she endured being the only brown girl in a whole school. Good Lord. I don't know if I could have done that. Definitely, I tip my hat off to her because, sometimes we care about what people say. We do. And that's some of the things that keep us from going after our dreams. The amygdala, remember the fear emotion? It's on. That fear emotion that keeps a lot of us away from our dreams. Now, I have to tell you, I told you before that I'm like a perfectionist. I look at my microphone because I want to make sure that it's on because a few other sessions got cut out and I didn't realize. But, I too get worried. I used to get worried sometimes, care about what people think, what people are going to say. And it would keep me from making videos because I didn't like to make mistakes. I'm very meticulous about everything. I don't want to say the wrong word. I don't want to have pauses between what I'm saying, but I got over it. I had to get over it. Gonna have people that's gonna criticize. People are gonna criticize these videos, because that's what some people do because they haven't found their own purpose yet. They watch other videos and then they think it's their responsibility to tear it down, to tear it apart, to pick out all the things that went wrong in the video. But that's all right because I feel fulfilled. I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm fulfilling my purpose, and nothing is better than that. So, reconstructive surgery, we have to fix what's wrong. And I feel like we owe it. We owe it to them. We owe it to Ruby Bridges, don't we? You mean you're going to say you did all that work? Girl, you were doing the most. You were doing the most. Good for you, though. I'm glad you fulfilled your dream and your mission. You did the most, girl. After all of that, we were at a stage where we weren't even allowed to have a book because, see, knowledge is power. That's why I'm telling you, if you want to change, you want change, that's the first thing we have to do. We have to stop complaining and we have to start training. And if you have a child that's between the ages of 2 and 11 and you're not training them to be excellent, what are you doing? What are we doing? We owe it to them. It's not that she took a cab. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at my girl over there. She didn't take a cab. And you know what's funny? That's not even, this is a more realistic picture. But we owe it to her for all that she did, because we weren't even allowed to read. We weren't allowed to read. We couldn't get a book. Because, see, if we got a book, then we would have been difficult to enslave any people. Now, remember, this podcast is never about one race or one culture. It doesn't matter who's listening, because you see, what she did wasn't just for one race. It was for all races, because, slavery was wrong, enslaving any culture. And I will tell you, I know that other cultures have gone through different forms of slavery, and it's wrong, it's unethical. But for the people, African American people that this young lady fought for, then we have to, my stomach growled, for what she's done and for what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did. We can't just sit back. We can't allow our children to fail. They did it because there was a time when we weren't allowed to have books to read. And people that did learn to read back then, they had to do it like in a cellar, dark cellar with a tiny little light. Somebody would sneak them a book and they would read. A lot of them couldn't read. How could they read? Didn't have the opportunity, because knowledge is power. So we didn't have power because knowledge was kept from us. But now, who's keeping knowledge from you? Who is keeping the knowledge from your child? Tell me, who is doing that? Which school is keeping books away from your child? Which school is restricting certain library material from children so they cannot learn properly? Which school? Which school is having a teacher teach your child something completely different? Like they're saying, like they're telling your child that improper fractions is the same exact thing as a percent. No. We all have access to the same book. Okay, I have this picture just to say, I feel like we need to pick up the baton, and we need to educate ourselves. That's bottom line. Okay, it's not just about education, because clearly she wasn't educated. She could not read. She couldn't read. So what got her to fulfill her purpose? Come on, guys, help me. Mindset. She was able to conquer her limbic system. You think she was comfortable? She was uncomfortable every day. She couldn't be at peace because of that calling, telling her, go back and save those people. And she listened and she did it. Right? We owe it to them to pick up the baton. And parents, we need reconstructive surgery on these children. Now, one thing more I'm going to say is, we talked about if your child had a medical diagnosis that they had terminal illness. And I asked the question, would you challenge how much it costs for weekly treatments for this child? Like, regardless of what it costs, would you just say, I guess this child's going to have to die because I don't have the money. I don't see the money. My finances is not in order. I can't help this child to live. I mean, would you? I don't know the answer. I mean, I know what I would say. I would sell my neighbor's boat to help me pay for it. Everything I had, and beg people, can I sell your car? Whatever, can you help me out here? Is what I would do to save my child's life, right? And then I say, why would you save their life if you're not going to allow them to have life through education? okay? Because we have the physical life and we have a mental life, okay? You can die physically, but I think the worst death is a mental death because you're still physically alive, but you're dead inside. There's nothing worse than that. Every day you're walking, missing your purpose, and every night you gotta deal with it. You know, when I was fighting against my purpose because I was kind of scared, I told you I was so scared to step out and to make my mistakes, whatever it is. You know, I do silly things a lot of times. And I was afraid. And every time the night came and, you know, I realized I didn't step out, I didn't achieve my daily goal. It was hard. It was so hard. I felt terrible. And sometimes I barely wanted to go to sleep because it was just hard. Because, you know, when you're not fulfilling your purpose, you just want to stay awake and try to accomplish it at the end of the day. So that's what we need to do, right? So we have that situation where you're saving their life. And then, so when parents say to me, you know, yeah, they have these gaps. And I said, that's an illness. Your child is sick. They're failing to prepare for the real world. They're failing to prepare to align with their purpose. Good Lord. I can't express enough to you what a painful scenario that is. But a lot of adults are living that, so I don't have to explain it. You know. So that's what reconstructive surgery will do. Just like you would have done surgery and paid for that treatment for a child to keep them physically alive, it's equally ethical. It's equally ethical, like I said, because the torment that a person feels when they don't align with their purpose, that's terrible. Remember, that's where suicide is coming from. That depression, anxiety, all that other stuff that I don't know. But it's related when you miss your purpose, because we were born to fulfill a purpose. You gotta fulfill the purpose you were born to fulfill, or you're gonna be lost. You're gonna feel divided. You're gonna live in that entropic reality day and night. You feel yourself falling apart. Even hear pieces of you hitting the ground. Why would you allow a child to grow up to experience that pain when we can do something about it? Yes, reconstructive surgery is going to cost. And if it's something like cancer that, you know, sometimes there's no cure. You know, you have something here, education, and there is a cure. When your child have all these gaps, it's the ethical thing to do is to fix and to close those gaps. And stop saying, oh, I don't have the money. If they were physically dying, you'd find the money. Right now, if there was a big hole in your roof, you would find the money. If your car stopped working and you're broke, you have absolute no money, bet you'd find a way to get a car. Because that's what we do. When we have emergency situations, we fix them. We find a way. It's not that we have the money. We don't. It's not that we have it. It's just that, again, your child's got a terminal illness. Find the money. You have a mortgage that's due every month. Now, I know some people just don't pay it, but in general, you know that you got to pay that mortgage or you're going to be thrown out of your house. So what do? You find a way to pay the mortgage. You find a way to fix certain things that you consider critical. So if you're spending all day talking about how you don't have the money to properly educate your child, I believe it's two things. Either you don't believe they have the potential to become great and to align with their purpose, or you just don't understand the severity of a child who is off course their purpose. All right. Remember, we beg God for children. And so a lot of people can't have kids, but then when you have them, why do you have them? Why do you have a child only to allow them to experience mental insecurities? So are you going to tell me before we close, are you going to tell me that you don't need to do anything, that your child will just naturally align with purpose? Now, at some point, we're going to talk about Christianity and how it contributes and play a role in all of this. It's a lot. And I'm going to just say this one part about that I know there are scriptures that says be contented in whatever state you're in. And I'm going to tell you that scripture is there just because God wanted to give you hope. He didn't want you to hate yourself when you don't align, but he had an ideal purpose for you. He had an ideal plan for you. Remember, the people with the talents, not all of them developed their talents. Remember one that brought it back and said, look, I didn't lose it. I mean, I didn't double it, but at least I didn't lose it, right? I didn't take a chance. I didn't want to take a chance and lose your talent. Here you go. I'm giving it back to you. Did the best I could. And another came back and doubled it. And who was God pleased with, right? The one that took a chance and developed. So you got to develop the person's talent. It's not a choice that they have to align or not align, because if they don't align, they have to walk an alternative path that wasn't ideal. And for people that's just working a regular job and that you're in a career, but it's not aligned with your purpose, no matter how much money you're making, yeah, you feel it, right? You feel the entropy, you feel the falling apart, the falling away, you feel divided. How is that even possible, making all that money? Sometimes when I hear about people in Hollywood making millions of dollars and they just do certain things, you're like, wow, how could they not be happy with all that money? That's because they weren't aligned with their purpose. All right, so that's what constructive surgery is all about. We need to operate on our children so that they can end up experiencing justice, because that's what justice is, That's what equality is. Because if everyone fulfilled their purpose, then everyone's equal. Yes, yes. Because that's the only purpose for life, is being born to fulfill a purpose. So if you fulfill your purpose, no matter what skin tone you are, hey, you've won. All right, so thanks for listening. And I know this one was a little calm. I think I was just a little hungry. So don't worry, I'll have more energy next time. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this session, and let's keep it moving, because ultimately we want to get our children signed up for the academic success plan for kids, especially if they're between the ages of, kindergarten to second grade. Contact a stronger foundation, get them an academic success plan, give them a real shot at succeeding and aligning with their real purpose, not some alternative purpose that they're going to be meaningless, unfulfilled, and just angry all the time. All right. So thanks for listening to this session. I will be back. All right. Cool.